whipping by. A month, the year is literally like, well, I wouldn't say literally, but as good as half over. It's, yeah. And it feels, yeah, it feels like the entire year has just been skipped, because it kind of has. Mrs. Shadowtronic says, "How are we doing?" she says, with some olives. I like the olives. I do. We're doing good. We're doing okay. We're doing okay. Still not caught up with the work I need to be caught up with, though. Good Lord, I need to get caught up with that. More auto hosts. Good Lord. Lady Magritte and Velociraptor. Mr. Shadowtronics is always so generous with those embers. Thank you for that. So, anyway, I hope you are all having a great day. Great day. It's been a, yeah, we are just doing a waking up day today. Last night I stayed up a little late. Wasn't gaming too late, but I kind of got started just reading a few things last night, getting caught up on a few things. It was, by the way, a great gaming night last night, even though I got my butt handed to me in PUBG. It was fun. It was fun playing that again. That game is a lot of fun. But yeah, my skill at it, I think I need to be a little more patient at it, I think. And then sometimes you just get a little lucky where you land. My KDA is sinking rapidly on that. Good morning, Kate. No one saw you sneaking in. Front of the class, please. Yeah. Anyway, so what are we doing? We're reading Around the World in 80 Days. Today's part 3. No, I didn't. What? They know you did now. Indeed. Okay, so we're reading Around the World in 80 Days by Jules Verne, published a long time ago. And so far so good. We have Passepartout is the French valet of Mr. Phileas Fogg. Mr. Phileas Fogg being an eccentric, independent millionaire, essentially, who's taken up a bet to travel around the world in 80 days, with a bet for quite a lot of money with his members of his exclusive club that he belongs to. A lot of money on the line, and at the same time, we have a British detective, Detective Fix, who is convinced that the only reason he's doing it is because he's a bank robber, trying to throw police off the trail. So Detective Fix is making good friends with Passepartout, who has a tendency to gossip quite a lot. So they've traveled through, I think Egypt. I think they traveled through all the way through India. They did some by train, did some by elephant. They rescued a girl who was about to be thrown onto a funeral pyre because her husband was died, and that was the tradition in the area that they're going through. So I think she's joined the team. I think she's still with them. Anyway, they've just arrived in Calcutta, where they're going to be hopping on a steamer off to Hong Kong. That's where they are at right now. Oh, and Passepartout broke like some holy rites, or some traditions, I guess. So, some local religious laws, essentially. He broke them by being a foreigner walking into a particular temple with his shoes on. You never wear shoes in this place. Anyway, so he's on the, he doesn't know it, but he's on the lam for that, and Detective Fix is going to try and use that, apparently, as some kind of excuse for holding them up. Okay, so it's not as complicated as I might be making it sound. But that's where we are at. That's where we are at. It's hump day. How y'all doing on hump day? Pretty good. I hope you're ready for some story time, because we were about to jump on in, unless anyone has any news or excitement to share. I don't know. Okay, let's just get on with it. Let's boy, Twitter is all weird this morning. Everyone's freaking out on it. Maybe I should just stop reading Twitter. Maybe, I don't know. Oh, that's right. And sorry, before we go, we had a great raid from Miss Valor Plays last night, which was that was very nice. Very nice. Oh, actually, you know what? Let me just double check that I actually follow Miss Valor Plays. She has a great community. And let's see, do I? Yeah, I do follow her. Yeah, of course. Yeah. Okay, yeah, she came by with all her friends, and oh, that's be you. Yeah, it was great, and yeah, I got to entertain them with a bit of with a bit of the PUBG, but then we switched over to some twin stick shooter later on with Neon Chrome, which I just read has been taken off of Game Pass at the end of the month. Mrs. Shadowtronic put up some GB ASMR on the Twitter page. Okay, all right. Well, I will have to remember to check that out. Yeah, everyone was talking about ASMR last night and how I should be doing it, and it was just like I don't know. I don't know, because like all the like successful people that I see doing it, they're all like on the well, yeah, I don't want to say on the weird side of it, but on that side of it. So yeah, I don't know if that's I don't know. Don't know. Maybe. At any rate, we should get on with our book. Shall we do it? Shall we read some stuff? Backing up a page here. Calcutta was reached at 7 in the morning, and the packet left for Hong Kong at noon, so that Phileas Fogg had 5 hours before him. According to his journal, he was due at Calcutta on the 25th of November. And that was the exact date of his actual arrival. He was therefore neither behind time nor ahead of time. The 2 days gained between London and Bombay had been lost, as has been seen, in the journey across India, but it is not to be supposed that Phileas Fogg regretted them. After all, they did rescue that lady from being burned alive, which would kind of suck. I think that definitely would kind of suck. I think we can all agree on that. Okay. Chapter 15, in which the bag of banknotes disgorges some thousands of pounds more. The train entered the station, and Passepartout, jumping out first, was followed by Mr. Fogg, who assisted his fair companion to descend. Phileas Fogg intended to proceed at once to the Hong Kong steamer in order to get Aouda comfortably settled for the voyage. He was unwilling to leave her while they were still on dangerous ground. Just as he was leaving the station, a policeman came up to him and said, "Mr. Phileas Fogg." "I am he." "Is this man your servant?" added the policeman, pointing to Passepartout. "Yes." "Be so good, both of you, as to follow me." Mr. Fogg betrayed no surprise whatsoever. The policeman was a representative of the law, and law is sacred to an Englishman. Passepartout tried to reason about the matter, but the policeman tapped him with his stick, and Mr. Fogg made him a signal to obey. "May this young lady go with us?" asked he. "She may," replied the policeman. Mr. Fogg, Aouda, and Passepartout were conducted to a palkagari, a sort of four-wheeled carriage drawn by 2 horses, in which they took their places and were driven away. No one spoke during the 20 minutes which elapsed before they reached their destination. They first passed through the Black Town, with its narrow streets, its miserable dirty huts, and the squalid population. Then through the European Town, which presented a relief in its bright brick mansions, shaded by coconut trees and bristling with masts, where, although it was early morning, elegantly dressed horsemen and handsome equipages. What's an equipage? The equipment for a particular purpose. A carriage and horses with attendants. Okay. Although it was early morning, elegantly dressed horsemen and handsome equipages were passing back and forth. The carriage stopped before a modest-looking house, which, however, did not have the appearance of a private mansion. The policeman, having requested his prisoners, for so truly they might be called, to descend, conducted them into a room with barred windows, and said, "You will appear before Judge Obadiah at 8:30. He then retired and closed the door. "Good morning, Minosha. How you doing?"
"Why, we are prisoners!" exclaimed Passepartout, falling into a chair.
Aouda, with an emotion she tried to conceal, said to Mr. Fogg,
"Sir, you must leave me to my fate. It is on my account that you receive this treatment. It is for having saved me."
Phileas Fogg contented himself with saying that it was impossible. It was quite unlikely that he should be arrested for preventing a suttee. The complainants would not dare present themselves with such a charge. There was some mistake. Moreover, he would not, in any event, abandon Aouda, but would escort her to Hong Kong.
"But the steamer leaves at noon,"
observed Passepartout nervously. "We shall be on board by noon," replied his master placidly. It was said so positively that Passepartout could not help muttering to himself,
"Parbleu, that's certain. Before noon we shall be on board."
But he was by no means reassured. At 8:30, the door opened, the policeman appeared, and, requesting them to follow him, led the way to an adjoining hall. It was evidently a courtroom, and a crowd of Europeans and natives already occupied the rear of the apartment. Mr. Fogg and his two companions took their places on a bench opposite the desks of the magistrate and his clerk. Immediately after, Judge Obadiah, a fat, round man, followed by the clerk, entered. He proceeded to take down a wig which was hanging on a nail, and put it hurriedly on his head.
"The first case," said he.
Then, putting his hand to his head, he exclaimed,
"This is not my wig."
"No, your worship," returned the clerk. "It is mine."
"Oh, my dear Oysterpuff, how can a judge give a wise sentence in a clerk's wig?"
The wigs were exchanged. Passepartout was getting nervous, for the hands on the face of the big clock over the judge seemed to go around with terrible rapidity.
"The first case,"
repeated Judge Obadiah.
"Phileas Fogg,"
demanded Oysterpuff. "I'm here," replied Mr. Fogg.
"Passepartout." "Presents,"
responded Passepartout.
"Good," said the judge. "You have been looked for, prisoners, for 2 days on the trains from Bombay."
"But of what are we accused?"
asked Passepartout impatiently.
"You're about to be informed."
"I am an English subject, sir," said Mr. Fogg, "and I have the right—"
"Have you been ill-treated?"
No, not at all."
"Very well. Let the complainants come in."
A door was swung open by order of the judge, and 3 Indian priests entered.
"Oh, that's it,"
muttered Passepartout.
"These are the rogues who were going to burn our young lady."
The priests took their places in front of the judge, and the clerk proceeded to read in a loud voice a complaint of sacrilege against Phileas Fogg and his servant, who were accused of having violated place held consecrated by the Brahmin religion.
"You hear the charge?"
"Yes, sir," replied Mr. Fogg, consulting his watch, "and I admit it."
"You admit it?"
"I admit it, and I wish to hear these priests admit in their turn what they were going to do at the pagoda of Pelagi." The priests looked at each other. They did not seem to understand what was said.
"Yes," cried Passepartout warmly, "at the pagoda of Pelagi, where they were on the point of burning their victim."
The judge stared with astonishment, and the priests were stupefied.
"What victim?"
said Judge Obadiah.
"Burn whom? In Bombay itself?"
"Bombay?"
cried Passepartout.
"Certainly. We're not talking of the pagoda of Pelagi, but of the pagoda of Malabar Hill at Bombay."
"And as proof," added the clerk, "here are the desecrator's very shoes which he left behind him."
Whereupon he placed a pair of shoes on his desk.
"Oh, my shoes!"
cried Passepartout, in his surprise permitting this imprudent exclamation to escape him. The confusion of master and man, who had quite forgotten the affair at Bombay, for which they were now detained at Calcutta, may be imagined. Fix, the detective, had foreseen the advantage which Passepartout's escapade gave him, and delaying his departure for 12 hours, had consulted the priests of Malabar Hill. Knowing that the English authorities dealt very severely with this kind of misdemeanor, he promised them a goodly sum in damages and sent them forward to Calcutta by the next train. Owing to the delay caused by the rescue of the young widow, Fix and the priests reached the Indian capital before Mr. Fogg and his servant, the magistrates having been already warned by a dispatch to arrest them should they arrive. Fix's disappointment when he learned that Phileas Fogg had not made his appearance in Calcutta may be imagined. He made up his mind that the robber had stopped somewhere on the route and taken refuge in the southern provinces. For 24 hours Fix watched the station with feverish anxiety. At last he was rewarded by seeing Mr. Fogg and Passepartout arrive, accompanied by a young woman, whose presence he was wholly at a loss to explain. He hastened for a policeman, and this was how the party came to be arrested and brought before Judge Obadiah. "Good morning, Lady Death." "Good morning." Is it a good Wednesday? I hope it's a good Wednesday. Where is my... You know what? I don't think my... Yeah, I don't think my... my restream chat's working. Man, everything's breaking. Good lord, all my bots are broken and falling to pieces. So there, Mr. Game Trickster. It is, boy, I don't know why. This is, I don't know, it's so... I don't know, who knows? Had Passepartout been a little less preoccupied, he would have espied the detective ensconced in a corner of the courtroom, watching the proceedings with an interest easily understood, for the warrant had failed to reach him at Calcutta, as it had done at Bombay and Suez. I'm just going to pop out this chat window here, 1 second. So much to keep track of. Ba-ba-bum. Or actually, it was this one. I'm going to keep that one up too. And back to what, there we go. Judge Obadiah had unfortunately caught Passepartout's rash exclamation, which the poor fellow would have given the world to recall. "The facts are admitted?" asked the judge. Admitted," replied Mr. Fogg coldly. "Inasmuch," resumed the judge, "as the English law protects equally and sternly the religions of the Indian people, and as the man Passepartout has admitted that he violated the sacred pagoda of Malabar Hill at Bombay on the 20th of October, I condemn the said Passepartout to imprisonment for 15 days and a fine of £300. £300! cried Passepartout, startled at the largeness of the sum. Silence! Shouted the constable. And inasmuch, continued the judge, as it is not proved that the act was not done by the connivance of the master with the servant, and as the master in any case must be held responsible for the acts of his paid servant, I condemn Phileas Fogg to a week's imprisonment and a fine of £150. Fix rubbed his hands softly with satisfaction. If Phileas Fogg could be detained in Calcutta a week, it would be more than time for the warrant to arrive.
Passepartout was stupefied. This sentence ruined his master. A wager of £20,000 lost, because he, like a precious fool, had gone into that abominable pagoda. Phileas Fogg, as self-composed as if the judgment did not in the least concern him, did not even lift his eyebrows while it was being pronounced. Just as the clerk was calling the next case, he rose and said, "I offer bail." "You have that right," returned the judge. Fix's blood ran cold, but he resumed his composure when he heard the judge announce that the bail required for each prisoner would be £1,000. "I will pay it at once," said Mr. Fogg, taking a roll of bank bills from the carpet bag which Passepartout had by him and placing them on the clerk's desk. "The sum will be restored to you upon your release from prison," said the judge. "Meanwhile, you are liberated on bail." "Come," said Phileas Fogg to his servant. "Oh, but let them at least give me back my shoes," cried Passepartout angrily. "Ah, these are pretty dear shoes," he muttered, as they were handed to him. "More than £1,000 apiece. Besides, they're pinching my feet." Mr. Fogg, offering his arm to Aouda, then departed, followed by the crestfallen Passepartout. Fix still nourished hopes that the robber would not, after all, leave the £2,000 behind him, but would decide to serve out his week in jail, and issued forth on Mr. Fogg's traces. That gentleman took a carriage, and the party were soon landed on one of the quays. The Rangoon was moored half a mile off in the harbour, its signal of departure hoisted at the masthead. 11 o'clock was striking. Mr. Fogg was an hour in advance of time. Fix saw them leave the carriage and push off in a boat for the steamer, and stamped his feet with disappointment. "The rascal is off after all," he exclaimed. £2,000 sacrificed. He's as prodigal a thief as ever. I'll follow him to the end of the world if necessary, but at the rate he's going, the stolen money will soon be exhausted. The detective was not far wrong in making this conjecture. Since leaving London, what with travelling expenses, bribes, the purchase of the elephant, bails, and fines, Mr. Fogg had already spent more than £5,000 on the way, and the percentage of the sum recovered from the bank robber promised to the detectives was rapidly diminishing. Uh-oh, what was the lulls for there, Rose? I don't know, was it a good lulls? I hope it was. Ba-ba-bum. Let's see, where are we at? Yeah, we can just close that. But what the cops do? The cop, yeah, he's all worried about his rapidly shrinking reward. That's right, yeah, because he gets the detective gets X amount of money plus 5% of whatever's recovered. And so the more that and he's pretty sure that Phileas Fogg is the thief. So every time he sees him spend a lot of money, all he can think about is how his reward is shrinking and shrinking too. All right, yeah, okay. All right, we got that. All right. Okay. Let's see. Chapter 16. Going so far, where are we at? 39%. Okay. Okay, so right now it looks like we're probably going to finish this book next Tuesday. I was thinking Monday, but I guess we had a bunch of. I guess the first several pages of this were kind of empty title pages and the like, which since we don't read those, just made it made progress seem a lot faster on Monday. Chapter 16, in which Fix does not seem to understand in the least what is said to him. The Rangoon, one of the peninsula, and it was more. And his career. Okay.
Yeah. The voice characterization that I picked for him is actually kind of hard, but hopefully we can keep at it. Yeah, Lady Death is yeah. In which Detective Fix does not seem to understand in the least what is said to him. The Rangoon, one of the Peninsular and Oriental Company's boats plying in the Chinese and Japanese seas, was a screw steamer, built of iron, weighing about 1,770 tons, and with engines of 400 horsepower. She was as fast, but not as well fitted up, as the Mongolia, and Aouda was not as comfortably provided for on board of her as Phileas Fogg could have wished. However, the trip from Calcutta to Hong Kong only comprised some 3,500 miles, occupying from 10 to 12 days, and the young woman was not difficult to please. During the first days of the journey, Aouda became better acquainted with her protector, and constantly gave evidence of her deep gratitude for what he had done. The phlegmatic gentleman listened to her, apparently at least, with coldness, neither his voice nor his manner betraying the slightest emotion. But he seemed to be always on the watch that nothing should be wanting to Aouda's comfort. He visited her regularly each day at certain hours, not so much to talk himself as to sit and hear her talk. He treated her with the strictest politeness, but with the precision of an automaton, the movements of which he had been arranged. But with the precision of an automaton, the movements of which had been arranged for this purpose. Okay. Aouda did not quite know what to make of him, though Passepartout had given her some hints of his master's eccentricity, and made her smile by telling her of the wager which was sending him round the world. After all, she owed Phileas Fogg her life, and she always regarded him through the exalting medium of her gratitude. Good morning, Skip Donahue. How you doing, man? What's going on? Aouda confirmed. Oh, good morning, Rookie Whistle. Yeah. A little, was that Disco Spaceman? I like a Disco Spaceman. Aouda confirmed that the Parsee's guide... Aouda confirmed the Parsee guide's narrative of her touching history. She did indeed belong to the highest of the native races of India. Many of the Parsee merchants have made great fortunes there by dealing in cotton, and one of them, Sir James T. G. Boy, was made a baronet by the English government. Aouda was a relative of this great man, and it was his cousin, Gigi, whom she hoped to join at Hong Kong. Whether she would find a protector in him she could not tell, but Mr. Fogg essayed to calm her anxieties, and to assure her that everything would be mathematically, he used the very word, arranged. Oh yeah, we're all doing well here, I think. I hope, Skip. Yeah, it's Wednesday, hump day. Aouda fastened her great eyes, clear as the sacred lakes of the Himalaya, upon him, but the intractable Fogg, as reserved as ever, did not seem at all inclined to throw himself into this lake. The first few days of the voyage passed prosperously, amid favorable weather and propitious winds, and they soon came in sight of the Great Andaman, the principal of the islands in the Bay of Bengal, with its picturesque saddle peak, 2,400 feet high, looming above the waters. The steamer passed along near the shores, but the savage Papuans, who are in the lowest scale of humanity, thank you, Mr. Jules Verne, but are not, as has been asserted, cannibals, did not make their appearance. The panorama of the islands, as they steamed by them, was superb. Vast forests of palms, araks. What's araks? I don't know what an arak is. Doesn't say. Vast forests of palms, araks, bamboo, teakwood, of the gigantic mimosa and tree-like ferns covered the foreground, while behind, the graceful outlines of the mountains were traced against the sky, and along the coast swarmed by thousands the precious swallows, whose nests furnish a luxurious dish to the tables of the celestial empire. What? Who's buying the coffee? I'm down for that. Coffee for all, my friends. The varied landscape afforded by the Andaman Islands was soon passed, however, and the Rangoon rapidly approached the Straits of Malacca, which gave access to the China Seas. What was Detective Fix, so unluckily drawn on from country to country, doing all this while? He had managed to embark on the Rangoon at Calcutta without being seen by Passepartout, after leaving orders that, if the warrant should arrive, it should be forwarded to him at Hong Kong, and he hoped to conceal his presence to the end of the voyage. It would have been difficult to explain why he was on board without awakening Passepartout's suspicions, who thought him still at Bombay. But necessity impelled him, nevertheless, to renew his acquaintance with the worthy servant, as will be seen. All the detective's hopes and wishes were now centered on Hong Kong, for the steamer's stay at Singapore would be too brief to enable him to take any steps there. The arrest must be made at Hong Kong, or the robber would probably escape him forever. Hong Kong was the last English ground on which he would set foot. Beyond, China, Japan, America offered to Fogg an almost certain refuge. If the warrant should at last make its appearance at Hong Kong, Fix could arrest him and give him into the hands of the local police, and there would be no further trouble. But beyond Hong Kong, a simple warrant would be of no avail. An extradition warrant would be necessary, and that would result in delays and obstacles of which the rascal would take advantage to elude justice. Fix thought over these probabilities during the long hours which he spent in his cabin, and kept repeating to himself, Now, either the warrant will be at Hong Kong, in which case I shall arrest my man, or it will not be there, and this time it is absolutely necessary that I should delay his departure. I failed at Bombay, and I failed at Calcutta. If I fail at Hong Kong, my reputation is lost. Cost what it may, I must succeed. But how shall I prevent his departure, if that should turn out to be my last resource? Fix made up his mind that, if worst came to worst, he would make a confidant of Passepartout, and tell him what kind of a fellow his master really was. That Passepartout was not Fogg's accomplice, he was very certain. The servant, enlightened by his disclosure, and afraid of being himself implicated in the crime, would doubtless become an ally of the detective. But this method was a dangerous one, only to be employed when everything else had failed. A word from Passepartout to his master would ruin all. The detective was therefore in a sore strait. But suddenly a new idea struck him. The presence of Aouda on the Rangoon, in company with Phileas Fogg, gave him new material for reflection. Oh, okay, let's just take a quick little look at, there's new sticker there. They got new stickers? Everyone's been, there's one sticker, everyone's been making fun of it, which is, it's still there. This one, where'd you get that one from? That's not listed on my list of stickers there, Rookie Whistle. Is that a Samsung only one or something? I don't see that one. But anyway, the one which everyone is just confused about is this one. That one right there. And there's been up on Twitter. You know, if you I don't know if you look up Mixer and whatever on Twitter there. Exactly, Skip. Everyone's just like, what is that? At first, I thought it was an overhead view of two fists coming together for like a fist bump. You know, of like two different colored skins doing like a fist bump overhead, and it just seemed really weird because they're not equal in size. I mean, so like it just seemed really weird. Then it turned out it wasn't that. Then I was like, you know, it's an erupting volcano. There's the volcano, and then the red like stuff coming out of the top. It's definitely an erupting volcano, but it's not. But the official reply from Mixer was, we wanted to do something abstract, and yeah, it certainly is. No one can figure out what it means. Yeah, and yeah, I mean, even right now, like, people on Twitter are still trying to figure out exactly what it is. Kate loves using that one. What's a chip and dip? A book club chip and dip. It could be chip and dip. Oh, tillable cat. All right, let's get back to our thing here. Okay, get back to our book. You like chips? Well, I like chips too. Good morning, Dragonslayer. Good morning. Yeah. Very good. It's a pretty good day. It is a pretty good day. No lies. No lies. It's a pretty good day. It's going to get even better though. It's going to get even better. It's definitely abstract, and it would be nice if they could actually do something a little, strong. But anyway, that's a cool. I guess that's like it might be a Samsung only sticker, which Rookie Whistle's got, because I don't see it on my list of stickers at all. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so let's get on with it then. All right. Okay, let's do it. That's right. We're picking up good vibrations. Okay. The presence of Aouda on the Rangoon, in company with Phileas Fogg, gave him new material for reflection. Who was this woman? What combination of events had made her Fogg's traveling companion? They had evidently met somewhere between Bombay and Calcutta. But where? Had they met accidentally, or had Fogg gone into the interior purposely in quest of this charming damsel? Fix was fairly puzzled. He asked himself whether there had not been a wicked elopement, and this idea so impressed itself upon his mind that he determined to make use of the supposed intrigue. Whether the young woman was married or not, he would be able to create such difficulties for Mr. Fogg at Hong Kong that he could not escape by paying any amount of money. But could he even wait till they reached Hong Kong? Fogg had an abominable way of jumping from one boat to another, and before anything could be effected, might get full underway again for Yokohama. Good morning, King Danny. Yeah. Good morning. King Danny's with us. Yeah. Skip Donahue's with us. Kate's with us. All these night working people. Rookie Whistle was working all night. Wow. You were up all night too, watching streams. Wow. Everyone's a little tired here today, I think, on Mixer. All right. Blah, 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 blah. Whether the young woman were married or not, he would be able to create such difficulties for Mr. Fogg at Hong Kong that he could not escape by paying any amount of money. But could he even wait till they reached Hong Kong? Fogg had an abominable way of jumping from one boat to another, and before anything could be effected, might get full underway again for Yokohama. Fix decided that he must warn the English authorities and signal the Rangoon before her arrival. This was easy to do, since the steamer stopped at Singapore, whence there is a telegraphic wire to Hong Kong. He finally resolved, moreover, before acting more positively, to question Passepartout. It would not be difficult to make him talk, and as there was no time to lose, Fix prepared to make himself known. It was now the 30th of October, and on the following day the Rangoon was due at Singapore. Fix emerged from his cabin and went on deck. Passepartout was promenading up and down in the forward part of the steamer. The detective rushed forward with every appearance of extreme surprise, and exclaimed, "You here on the Rangoon?" "Oh, what, Monsieur Fix, are you on board?" returned the really astonished Passepartout, recognizing his crony of the Mongolia. "Why, I left you at Bombay, and here you are, on the way to Hong Kong. Are you going round the world, too?" "Oh, no," replied Fix. "I shall stop at Hong Kong, at least for some days." Said Passepartout, who seemed for an instant perplexed. "But how is it I have not seen you on board since we left Calcutta?" "Oh, a trifle of seasickness. I've been staying in my berth. The Gulf of Bengal does not agree with me as well as the Indian Ocean. And how is Mr. Fogg?" "As well and as punctual as ever, not a day behind time. But, Monsieur Fix, you don't know that we have a young lady with us."
"A young lady," replied the detective, not seeming to comprehend what was said. Passepartout thereupon recounted Aouda's history, the affair at the Bombay Pagoda, the purchase of the elephant for £2,000, the rescue, the arrest and sentence of the Calcutta court, and the restoration of Mr. Fogg and himself to liberty on bail. Fix, who was familiar with the last events, seemed to be equally ignorant of all that Passepartout related, and the later was charmed to find so interested a listener.
"But does your master propose to carry this young woman to Europe?"
Not at all. We are simply going to place her under the protection of one of her relatives, a rich merchant at Hong Kong."
"Nothing to be done there,"
said Fix to himself, concealing his disappointment.
"A glass of gin, Mr. Passepartout."
"Oh, willingly, Monsieur Fix. We must have at least a friendly glass on board the Rangoon." All righty. Sounds like he's about to get a little chummy with Detective Fix there. With a drink, loose lips, sink ships. We're doing well, King Danny. Doing well. We're making progress through this book here. I'm a little behind on work. Actually, work in general is still terribly slow right now. Terribly slow. But we do what we can. You got a key from what? Those are Samsung only smileys. All right, that's interesting. They keep making brand new ones for Samsung. Interesting. It is indeed hump day. All right. Chapter 17. Showing what happened on the voyage from Singapore to Hong Kong. The detective and Passepartout met often on deck after this interview, though Fix was reserved and did not attempt to induce his companion to divulge any more facts concerning Mr. Fogg. He caught a glimpse of that mysterious gentleman once or twice, but Mr. Fogg usually confined himself to the cabin, where he kept Aouda company, or at least, according to his inveterate habit, took a hand at whist. Passepartout began very seriously to conjecture what strange chance kept Fix still on the route that his master was pursuing. It was really worth considering why this certainly very amiable and complacent person, whom he had first met at Suez, had then encountered on board the Mongolia, who disembarked at Bombay, which he announced as his destination, and now turned up so unexpectedly on the Rangoon, was following Mr. Fogg's track step by step. That's a long run-on. Okay. What was Fix's object? Passepartout was ready to wager his Indian shoes, which he religiously preserved, that Fix would also leave Hong Kong at the same time with them, and probably on the same steamer. Blah, 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 blah. Stumbling over stuff. No, maybe Catbot's taking a bit of a shine to you, Skip, maybe. Passepartout might have cudgelled his brain for a century without hitting upon the real object which the detective had in view. He never could have imagined that Phileas Fogg was being tracked as a robber around the globe. But, as it is in human nature to attempt the solution of every mystery, Passepartout suddenly discovered an explanation of Fix's movements, which was in truth far from unreasonable. Fix, he thought, could only be an agent of Mr. Fogg's friends at the Reform Club, sent to follow him up and to ascertain that he really went round the world, as had been agreed upon.
"Oh, it's clear,"
repeated the worthy servant to himself, proud of his shrewdness.
"He's a spy, sent to keep us in view. That isn't quite the thing, either, to be spying Mr. Fogg, who is so honourable a man. Ah, gentlemen of the Reform, this shall cost you dear."
Passepartout, enchanted with his discovery, resolved to say nothing to his master, lest he should be justly offended at this mistrust on the part of his adversaries.
but he determined to chafe Fix when he had the chance with mysterious allusions, which, however, need not betray his real suspicions. During the afternoon of Wednesday, 30th October, the Rangoon entered the Strait of Malacca, which separates the peninsula of that name from Sumatra. The mountainous and craggy islets intercepted the beauties of this noble island from the view of the travelers. The Rangoon weighed anchor at Singapore the next day at 4 a.m. to receive coal, having gained half a day on the prescribed time on her arrival. Phileas Fogg noted this gain in his journal, and then, accompanied by Aouda, who betrayed a desire for a walk on shore, disembarked. Fix, who suspected Mr. Fogg's every movement, followed them cautiously, without him being himself perceived, while Passepartout, laughing in his sleeve at Fix's maneuvers, went about his usual errands. The island of Singapore is not imposing in aspect, for there are no mountains, yet its appearance is not without attractions. It is a park checkered by pleasant highways and avenues. A handsome carriage, drawn by a sleek pair of New Holland horses, carried Phileas Fogg and Aouda into the midst of rows of palms with brilliant foliage, and of clove trees, whereof the cloves form the heart of a half-open flower. Pepper plants replaced the prickly hedges of European fields. Sago bushes, large ferns with gorgeous branches, varied the aspect of this tropical clime, while nutmeg trees in full foliage filled the air with a penetrating perfume. Agile and grinning bands of monkeys skipped about in the trees, nor were tigers wanting in the jungles. After a drive of 2 hours through the country, Aouda and Mr. Fogg returned to the town, which is a vast collection of heavy-looking, irregular houses surrounded by charming gardens, rich in tropical fruits and plants. And at 10 o'clock they re-embarked, closely followed by the detective, who had kept them constantly in sight. Lady Death will be back. Everyone's got to behave in the meantime. Passepartout, who had been purchasing several dozen mangoes, a fruit as large as good-sized apples, of a dark brown color outside and a bright red within, and whose white pulp, melting in the mouth, affords gourmands a delicious sensation, was waiting for them on deck. He was only too glad to offer some mangoes to Aouda, who thanked him very gracefully for them. At 11 o'clock, the Rangoon rode out of Singapore harbor, and in a few hours the high mountains of Malacca, with their forests, inhabited by the most beautifully furred tigers in the world, were lost to view. Singapore is distant some 1,300 miles from the island of Hong Kong, which is a little English colony near the Chinese coast. Phileas Fogg hoped to accomplish the journey in 6 days, so as to be in time for the steamer which would leave on the 6th of November for Yokohama, the principal Japanese port. The Rangoon had a large quota of passengers, many of whom disembarked at Singapore, among them a number of Indians, Ceylonese, Chinamen, Malays, and Portuguese, mostly second-class travelers. The weather, which had hitherto been fine, changed with the last quarter of the moon. The sea rolled heavily, and the wind at intervals rose almost to a storm, but happily blew from the southwest, and thus aided the steamer's progress. The captain, as often as possible, put up his sails, and under the double action of steam and sail, the vessel made rapid progress along the coasts of Annam and Cochin China. Owing to the defective construction of the Rangoon, however, unusual precautions became necessary in unfavorable weather, but the loss of time which resulted from this cause, while it nearly drove Passepartout out of his senses, did not seem to affect his master in the least. Passepartout blamed the captain, the engineer, and the crew, and consigned all who were connected with the ship to the land where the pepper grows. Perhaps the thought of the gas, which was remorselessly burning at his expense in Savile Row, had something to do with his hot impatience.
"You are in a great hurry, then.
said Fix to him one day.
To reach Hong Kong? Oh, a very great hurry. Mr. Fogg, I suppose, is anxious to catch the steamer for Yokohama. Oh, terribly anxious. You believe in this journey around the world, then? Oh, absolutely. Don't you, Monsieur Fix? I don't believe a word of it. Oh, you are a sly dog, said Passepartout, winking at him.
Your uncle worked there on Savile Row? Yeah, that's where Phileas Fogg's house is, number 7 Savile Row. It sounds like a pretty swanky kind of place. I'm sure the addresses have changed a little bit. Well, actually, you can still go to Baker Street in London, right? 221B, like the location of Sherlock Holmes's house. Your uncle made suits, yeah. British tailors are, they're pretty well known for their fine workmanship, that's for sure. Yeah. Now, did he work for the Grace Brothers? Like when a customer comes in, like would a department head be like, "Are you free, Mr. Donahue?" And he'd be like, "Yes, I'm free." The cheapest shirt was like £450. No, okay, it wasn't like that. All right. That show was so good, by the way. It's so dumb, but it was so good, so good. There's just something. Yeah, all right. Okay, let's get on with it. Okay.
You're a sly dog, said Passepartout, winking at him.
And this expression rather disturbed Fix, without his knowing why. Had the Frenchman guessed his real purpose? He knew not what to think. But how could Passepartout have discovered that he was a detective? Yet, in speaking as he did, the man evidently meant more than he expressed. Passepartout went still further the next day. He could not hold his tongue.
Mr. Fix, said he in a bantering tone, shall we be so unfortunate as to lose you when we get to Hong Kong?
Why, responded Fix, a little embarrassed, I don't know. Perhaps.
If you would only go on with us. An agent of the Peninsular Company, you know, can't stop on the way. You were only going to Bombay, and here you are in China. America is not far off, and from America to Europe is only a step.
Fix looked intently at his companion, whose countenance was as serene as possible, and laughed with him. But Passepartout persisted in chaffing him by asking him if he made much by his present occupation.
Yes and no, returned Fix. There's good and bad luck in such things, but you must understand that I don't travel at my own expense.
Oh, I am quite sure of that, cried Passepartout, laughing heartily. Fix, fairly puzzled, descended to his cabin and gave himself up to his reflections. He was evidently suspected. Somehow or other the Frenchman had found out that he was a detective. But had he told his master? What part was he playing in all this? Was he an accomplice or not? Was the game then up? Fix spent several hours turning these things over in his mind, sometimes thinking that all was lost, then persuading himself that Fogg was ignorant of his presence, and then undecided what course it was best to take. Nevertheless, he preserved his coolness of mind, and at last resolved to deal plainly with Passepartout. If he did not find it practical to arrest Fogg at Hong Kong, and if Fogg made preparations to leave that last foothold of English territory, he, Fix, would tell Passepartout all. Either the servant was the accomplice of his master, and in this case the master knew of his operations, and he should fail, or else the servant knew nothing about the robbery, and then his interest would be to abandon the robber. Such was the situation between Fix and Passepartout. Meanwhile, Phileas Fogg moved about above them in the most majestic and unconscious indifference. He was passing methodically in his orbit around the world, regardless of the lesser stars which gravitated around him. Yet there was nearby what the astronomers would call a disturbing star, which might have produced an agitation in this gentleman's heart. But no, the charms of Aouda failed to act, to Passepartout's great surprise, and the disturbances, if they existed, would have been more difficult to calculate than those of Uranus, which led to the discovery of Neptune. It was every day an interesting wonder to Passepartout, who read in Aouda's eyes the depths of her gratitude to his master. Phileas Fogg, though, brave and gallant, must be, he thought, quite heartless. As to the sentiment which this journey might have awakened in him, there was clearly no trace of such a thing, while poor Passepartout existed in perpetual reveries. That's right. The king, I am the king. One day he was leaning on the railing of the engine-room, and was observing the engine, when a sudden pitch of the steamer threw the screw out of the water. The steam came hissing out of the valves, and this made Passepartout indignant.
"These valves are not sufficiently charged," he exclaimed. "We are not going. Oh, these English! If this was an American craft, we should blow up. Perhaps, but we should at all events go faster."
Oh, my lord. Okay, all right, where we at?
Oh, sacre bleu.
Okay. Okay, let's catch up with chat a little here. So it's been a little minute since we've done that, that's for sure. Okay. Okay, let me scroll back up. Okay, so Rookie Whistle, he's thinking hard. Is this a good story or is this not? I don't know, he's thinking. Okay, so Skip Donahue, the cheap... Okay, he's talking about his uncle, a tailor on Savile Row. £450 for a shirt. That's a lot. That is a lot for a shirt. I wish I could afford that kind of moolah. Wish I had that kind of scratch in my pocket. £1,000 and up for a suit. Yeah, that's nice. I'm all boy. I'm not going to say the name of the store I go to here, but you can kind of get like 2 suits for $100, and they look okay. But tell you what, you can tell it ain't from Savile Row. That's for sure. Yeah. Very good. Actually, you know what? I need to go again. I wouldn't mind getting some new ones. All right. Okay. Actually, I think I'm pretty much caught up on chat. There we go. Rose Morales says it's a great story. Yeah, I'm enjoying it too. It's really good. I'd forgotten all about half the stuff in it. Oh, Lady Death has to skedaddle in a few minutes to get some errands to do. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, we will miss you, Lady Death. We will miss you. But yeah, gotta take care of that those things around town. Gotta do all that. All kinds of things. The kids are still doing like school from home. Are they still doing like that, or how's Alaska doing? I'm not sure how they're doing with the whole Rona thing. Oh, it's summer break, of course. Yeah, okay. So there's nothing for a couple of months. Oh boy. So now you have them 100% of the day. You can't catch a break at all. It's summer. School's out. And they're stuck at home anyway. All right. Yeah. Okay. Lady Death, it's a good thing you always talk about that too. Actually, you always talk how yeah, boy. What's gonna happen when it's time for them to leave home, Lady Death? And are you gonna let them? Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah, boy, oh boy, yeah, I bet you're not looking forward to that day. But you gotta let them fly, Lady Death, at some point. All right, Rose says you saw a post the other day that said, "Do I buy PJs or school clothes?" Yeah. They've been flapping a little, yeah. Yeah, they will. They will. Oh, you know, for that home at school thing, I've seen a lot of people posting videos of themselves faking themselves being on a Zoom camera. Like for they're off doing other stuff, but they'll set up like a little tripod. It's really quite ingenious. They take like a little like looping video of themselves on their phone, like paying attention to something and looking straight into like the phone camera, and then they set this thing up on a tripod. And do like and then just play it back on a loop. So the camera coming in from the zoom here, like just like it was, you know, focus. You can't see it's a camera, but it just shows the bit they're paying attention, and then it looks like they're actually in the schoolroom doing that. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So, actually, the next time I stumble across they show off on TikTok and stuff like that. Yeah, you can find videos of them on that. I'm still looking at that. I'm still trying to figure out what's the best thing I can do with TikTok. I don't know. We'll figure it out. I need to get a haircut first, because this is I'm just Mr. Shaggy here. I don't know. We'll figure it out. Okay. I think we're all caught up on chat. There we go. Oh, by the way, I stuck up a new sticker today from Mr. Oh, where is it? Oh, it hasn't shown up yet. Let me just refresh my window here real fast. Maybe it's stuck in limbo or something. Oh no, it's there now. It is there now. All right. Yeah, I'll be moving some stuff around, and then there'll be some more stickers going up too. But yeah, the latest one for Jer Henning is there, which is very good. The old GG one. So yeah, that dude is so good, by the way. Jer Henning. You know Jer Henning, right? I think you all know Jer Henning. He's yeah, he's just a fantastic artist here on Mixer. Anyway, so I sent him a bunch of money to make 4 stickers, and then he made 3 of them, and then I ran out of ideas for the last one. So I was just like, hang on to that thought, and so yeah, he's just been waiting for me to tell him what I wanted for the last one. So I made a mock-up like 2 days ago. I just made a mock-up of what I thought would be like an amazing, cool sticker, and I sent it to him. And like the very next day, he's just like, "Oh, you mean like this?" And he just like this perfect. It's just brilliant what he did. So okay, we'll catch you later, there, Lady Death. Catch you later. Yeah. So yeah, he's just an amazing artist, and he's like super patient, and but he's also like once you know what you want and you can tell him what you need, he just makes it exactly how you imagined it. It's great. Still need a Shiver Me Tiggers one. Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna have to see about that. Maybe do like yeah, actually, I'll have to think about the best way to do that. All right, you have a great day, Lady Death. Okay, let's get back to our story though, because we're supposed to be, yeah, we're making pretty good pace. All right. Chapter 18, in which Phileas Fogg, Passepartout, and Fix go each about his business. Okay, let me just finish the last of this copy. You know, I don't think I rinsed this thing out properly after I washed it yesterday. It tasted a little like soapy soap in there. Mostly good copy, though. Mostly good. In which Phileas Fogg, Passepartout, and Fix go each about his business. The weather was bad during the latter days of the voyage. The wind, obstinately remaining in the northwest, blew a gale and retarded the steamer. The Rangoon rolled heavily. and the passengers became impatient of the long, monstrous waves which the wind raised before their path. A sort of tempest arose on the 3rd of November, the squall knocking the vessel about with fury and the waves running high. The Rangoon reefed all her sails, and even the rigging proved too much, whistling and shaking amid the squall. The steamer was forced to proceed slowly, and the captain estimated that she would reach Hong Kong 20 hours behind time, and more if the storm lasted. Phileas Fogg gazed at the tempestuous sea, which seemed to be struggling especially to delay him, with his habitual tranquillity. He never changed countenance for an instant, though a delay of 20 hours, by making him too late for the Yokohama boat, would almost inevitably cause the loss of the wager. But this man of nerve manifested neither impatience nor annoyance. It seemed as if the storm were a part of his program and had been foreseen. Aouda was amazed to find him as calm as he had been from the first time she saw him. Fix did not look at the state of things in the same light. The storm greatly pleased him. His satisfaction would have been complete had the Rangoon been forced to retreat before the violence of wind and waves. Each delay filled him with hope, for it became more and more probable that Fogg would be obliged to remain some days at Hong Kong. And now the heavens themselves became his allies, with the gusts and squalls. It mattered not that they made him seasick. He made no account of this inconvenience, and whilst his body was writhing under their effects, his spirit bounded with hopeful exultation. Passepartout was enraged beyond expression by the unpropitious weather. Everything had gone so well till now. Earth and sea had seemed to be at his master's service. Steamers and railways obeyed him. Wind and steam united to speed his journey. Had the hour of adversity come? Passepartout was as much excited as if the £20,000 were to come from his own pocket. The storm exasperated him. The gale made him furious, and he longed to lash the obstinate sea into obedience. Poor fellow! Fix carefully concealed from him his own satisfaction, for had he betrayed it, Passepartout could scarcely have restrained himself from personal violence. Passepartout remained on deck as long as the tempest lasted, being unable to remain quiet below, and taking it into his head to aid the progress of the ship by lending a hand with the crew. He overwhelmed the captain, officers, and sailors, who could not help laughing at his impatience, with all sorts of questions. He wanted to know exactly how long the storm was going to last, whereupon he was referred to the barometer, which seemed to have no intention of rising. Passepartout shook it, but with no perceptible effect, for neither shaking nor maledictions could prevail upon it to change its mind. On the 4th, however, the sea became more calm, and the storm lessened its violence. The wind veered southward and was once more favorable. Passepartout cleared up with the weather. Some of the sails were unfurled, and the Rangoon resumed its most rapid speed. The time lost could not, however, be regained. Land was not signaled until 5 o'clock on the morning of the 6th. The steamer was due on the 5th. Phileas Fogg was 24 hours behindhand, and the Yokohama steamer would, of course, be missed. The pilot went on board at 6 and took his place on the bridge to guide the Rangoon through the channels to the port of Hong Kong. Passepartout longed to ask him if the steamer had left for Yokohama, but he dared not, for he wished to preserve the spark of hope, which still remained till the last moment. He had confided his anxiety to Fix, who, the sly rascal, tried to console him by saying that Mr. Fogg would be in time if he took the next boat, but this only put Passepartout in a passion. Mr. Fogg, bolder than his servant, did not hesitate to approach the pilot and tranquilly ask him if he knew when a steamer would leave Hong Kong for Yokohama.
"At high tide tomorrow morning," answered the pilot.
"Ah," said Mr. Fogg, without betraying any astonishment. Passepartout, who heard what passed, would willingly have embraced the pilot, while Fix would have been glad to twist his neck. "What's the steamer's name?" asked Mr. Fogg.
"The Carnatic."
Ought she not to have gone yesterday?
Oh, yes, sir, but they had to repair one of her boilers, and so her departure was postponed till tomorrow.
Oh, thank you, returned Mr. Fogg, descending mathematically to the saloon. Passepartout clasped the pilot's hand and shook it heartily in his delight, exclaiming,
"Oh, pilot, you are the best of good fellows."
The pilot probably does not know to this day why his responses won him this enthusiastic greeting. He remounted the bridge and guided the steamer through the flotilla of junks, tankers, and fishing boats which crowd the harbor of Hong Kong. At 1 o'clock, the Rangoon was at the quay, and the passengers were going ashore. Chance had strangely favored Phileas Fogg, for had not the Carnatic been forced to lie over for repairing her boilers, she would have left on the 6th of November, and the passengers for Japan would have been obliged to await for a week the sailing of the next steamer. Mr. Fogg was, it is true, 24 hours behind his time, but this could not seriously imperil the remainder of his tour. The steamer which crossed the Pacific from Yokohama to San Francisco made a direct connection with that from Hong Kong, and it could not sail until the latter reached Yokohama. And if Mr. Fogg was 24 hours late on reaching Yokohama, this time would no doubt be easily regained in the voyage of 22 days across the Pacific. He found himself then about 24 hours behind, 35 days after leaving London. The Carnatic was announced to leave Hong Kong at 5 the next morning. Mr. Fogg had deposited 16 hours in which to attend to his Mr. Fogg had 16 hours in which to attend to his business there, which was to deposit Aouda safely with her wealthy relative. On landing, he conducted her to a palanquin, in which they repaired to the Club Hotel. A room was engaged for the young woman, and Mr. Fogg, after seeing that she wanted for nothing, set out in search of her cousin, Gigi. He instructed Passepartout to remain at the hotel until his return, that Aouda might not be left entirely alone. Mr. Fogg repaired to the Exchange, where he did not doubt everyone would know so wealthy and considerable a personage as the Parsee merchant. Meeting a broker, he made the Boy, sometimes you're on a bit of a roll. Meeting a broker, he made the inquiry to learn that Gigi had left China 2 years before, and retiring from business with an immense fortune, had taken up his residence in Europe. In Holland, the broker thought, with the merchants of which country he had principally traded. Phileas Fogg returned to the hotel, begged a moment's conversation with Aouda, and without more ado apprised her that Gigi was no longer at Hong Kong, but probably in Holland. It's hitting refresh here, so my window's not working. Aouda at first said nothing. She passed her hand across her forehead and reflected a few moments. Then, in her sweet, soft voice, she said, "What ought I to do, Mr. Fogg?" It's very simple," responded the gentleman. "Go on to Europe." "But I cannot intrude." "You do not intrude, nor do you in the least embarrass my project. Passepartout." "Monsieur." "Go to the Carnatic and engage 3 cabins." Passepartout, delighted that the young woman, who was very gracious to him, was going to continue the journey with them, where he went off at a brisk gait to obey his master's orders. Yeah. Blah, 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 blah. All right. Okay, so it all makes sense. I hope it all makes sense. Yeah, it does. Chapter 19, in which Passepartout takes a too great interest in his master, and what comes of it. Hong Kong is an island which came into the possession of the English by the Treaty of Nankin after the War of 1842, and the colonizing genius of the English has created upon it an important city and an excellent port. The island is situated at the mouth of the Canton River, and is separated by about 60 miles
and is separated by about 60 miles from the Portuguese town of Macau on the opposite coast. Hong Kong has beaten Macau in the struggle for the Chinese trade, and now the greater part of the transportation of Chinese goods finds its depot at the former place. Docks, hospitals, wharves, a Gothic cathedral, a government house, macadamized streets. How do you say that? Macadamize. Make or cover with macadam. What is macadam? Make or cover with macadam. What is macadam? Sometimes these dictionaries are terrible. Wiki macadam. What is macadam? A type of road construction pioneered by blah 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 by John Loudon Macadam around 1820. Single-sized crushed stone layers of small angular stones. Huh. All right, interesting. Okay. Actually, for anyone who's just very curious about that, here's a little more detail about what it is. Yes, it is road stuff, yeah, but you can read a little bit more about that right there. It's actually pretty interesting stuff. Pretty interesting stuff. All right, let's actually pull this over here. Sorry, just boy, I got too much stuff going on. Okay, where is this? The chat window, and this is my book. This is my book. I need more monitors. That's what I need. Docks, hospitals, wharves, a Gothic cathedral, a government house, macadamized streets give to Hong Kong the appearance of a town in Kent or Surrey, transferred by some strange magic to the Antipodes. Passepartout wandered with his hands in his pockets towards the Victoria port, gazing as he went at the curious palanquins and other modes of conveyance, and the groups of Chinese, Japanese, and Europeans who passed to and fro in the streets. Hong Kong seemed to him not unlike Bombay, Calcutta, and Singapore, since like them it betrayed everywhere the evidence of English supremacy. Oh, you used to lay it down. You know. Wow. Okay. Yeah, that is very hard work. At the Victoria port, he found a confused mass of ships of all nations: English, French, American, and Dutch, men of war and trading vessels, Japanese and Chinese junks, sempers, tankers, and flower boats, which formed so many floating parterres. What is a parterre? Pottery. Potter. A level space in a garden or yard occupied by ornamental arrangement of flower beds. Parter. They are part of the ground floor of an auditorium in the rear and became the balcony. Yeah, that's Shadowtronics. I hear Shadowtronics. How you doing, man? Mr. Shadowtronics. Good morning, sir. Good morning. Lady Death leaves us. Shadowtronics appears. Coincidence? Maybe, maybe not. Shifting tons of the stuff, man. That's some heavy work. It's dangerous work too, building roads. Blah, 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 blah. Passepartout noticed in the crowd a number of the natives who seemed very old and dressed in yellow. On going into a barber's to get shaved, he learned that these ancient men were all at least 80 years old, at which age they are permitted to wear yellow, which is the imperial color. Passepartout, without exactly knowing why, thought this very funny. On reaching the quay where they were to embark on the Carnatic, he was not astonished to find Fix walking up and down. The detective seemed very much disturbed and disappointed. "Oh, this is bad," muttered Passepartout, "for the gentlemen of the Reform Club." He accosted Fix with a merry smile, as if he had not perceived that gentleman's chagrin. The detective had, indeed, good reasons to inveigh against the bad luck which pursued him. The warrant had not come. It was certainly on the way, but as certainly it could not now reach Hong Kong for several days, and this being the last English territory on Mr. Fogg's route, the robber would escape, unless he could manage to detain him.
"Well, Monsieur Fix," said Passepartout, "have you decided to go with us so far as America?"
"Yes," returned Fix through his set teeth.
"Oh, good!" exclaimed Passepartout, laughing heartily. "I knew you could not persuade yourself to separate from us. Come and engage your berth."
They entered the steamer office and secured cabins for 4 persons. The clerk, as he gave them the tickets, informed them that, the repairs on the Carnatic having been completed, the steamer would leave that very evening, and not next morning, as had been announced.
"Oh, that will suit my master all the better," said Passepartout. "I will go and let him know."
Fix now decided to make a bold move. He resolved to tell Passepartout all. It seemed to be the only possible means of keeping Phileas Fogg several days longer at Hong Kong. He accordingly invited his companion into a tavern, which caught his eye on the quay. On entering, they found themselves in a large room, handsomely decorated, at the end of which was a large camp bed furnished with cushions. Several persons lay upon this bed in a deep sleep. At the small tables which were arranged about the room, some 30 customers were drinking English beer, porter, gin, and brandy, smoking the while long red clay pipes stuffed with little balls of opium mingled with essence of rose. From time to time, one of the smokers, overcome with the narcotic, would slip under the table, whereupon the waiters, taking him by the head and feet, carried and laid him upon the bed. The bed already supported 20 of these stupefied sots. "Oh, man! Oh, that sounds terrible!" "Ah!" Fix and Passepartout saw that that's, oh boy, that's a terrible story there, Skip. Oh, I don't need that. Fix and Passepartout saw that they were in a smoking house, haunted by those wretched, cadaverous, idiotic creatures to whom the English merchants sell every year the miserable drug called opium, to the amount of £1,400,000. Thousands devoted to one of the most despicable vices which afflict humanity. The Chinese government has in vain attempted to deal with the evil by stringent laws. It passed gradually from the rich, to whom it was at first exclusively reserved, to the lower classes, and then its ravages could not be arrested. Opium is smoked everywhere, at all times, by men and women in the Celestial Empire, and once accustomed to it, the victims cannot dispense with it, except by suffering horrible bodily contortions and agonies. A great smoker can smoke as many as 8 pipes a day, but he dies in 5 years. It was in one of these dens that Fix and Passepartout, in search of a friendly glass, found themselves. Passepartout had no money, but willingly accepted Fix's invitation in the hope of returning the obligation at some future time. They ordered 2 bottles of port, to which the Frenchman did ample justice, while Fix observed him with close attention. They chatted about the journey, and Passepartout was especially merry at the idea that Fix was going to continue it with them. When the bottles were empty, however, he rose to go and tell his master of the change in the time of the sailing of the Carnatic. Fix caught him by the arm and said, "Wait a moment."
"Oh, what for, Mr. Fix?"
"I want to have a serious talk with you."
"Oh, a serious talk?" cried Passepartout, drinking up the little wine that was left in the bottom of his glass. "Well, we'll talk about it tomorrow. I haven't time now."
"Stay. What I have to say concerns your master."
Passepartout, at this, looked attentively at his companion. Fix's face seemed to have a singular expression. He resumed his seat.
"Oh, what is it you have to say?"
Fix placed his hand upon Passepartout's arm and, lowering his voice, said,
"You have guessed who I am?"
"Pablo," said Passepartout, smiling.
"Then I'm going to tell you everything."
"Now that I know everything, my friend, that's very good, but go on, go on. First, though, let me tell you that those gentlemen have put themselves to a useless expense."
"Useless," said Fix. "You speak confidently. It's clear that you don't know how large the sum is."
"Oh, of course I do," returned Passepartout. £20,000.
"55,000.
answered Fix, pressing his companion's hand.
"Oh, what?"
cried the Frenchman. "Has Monsieur Fogg dared? £55,000? Well, there's all the more reason for not losing an instant," he continued, getting up hastily.
Fix pushed Passepartout back in his chair and resumed.
£55,000, and if I succeed, I get £2,000. If you'll help me, I'll let you have 500 of them."
"Help you?" cried Passepartout, whose eyes were standing wide open.
"Yes, help me keep Mr. Fogg here for 2 or 3 days."
"Why, what are you saying? Those gentlemen are not satisfied with following my master and suspecting his honor, but they must try to put obstacles in his way? I blush for them."
"What do you mean?"
"I mean that it is a piece of shameful trickery. They might as well waylay Mr. Fogg and put his money in their pockets."
"Well, that's just what we count on doing."
"It's a conspiracy, then," cried Passepartout, who became more and more excited as the liquor mounted in his head, for he drank without perceiving it.
"A real conspiracy, and gentlemen, too. Bah!"
Fix began to be puzzled.
"Members of the Reform Club," continued Passepartout, "you must know, Monsieur Fix, that my master is an honest man, and that when he makes a wager he tries to win it fairly."
"But who do you think I am?" asked Fix, looking at him intently.
"Pablo, an agent of the members of the Reform Club, sent out here to interrupt my master's journey. But though I found you out some time ago, I've taken good care to say nothing about it to Monsieur Fogg." "He knows nothing, then?"
"Nothing," replied Passepartout, again emptying his glass. The detective passed his hand across his forehead, hesitating before he spoke again. What should he do? Good morning, Marzi. Passepartout's mistake seemed sincere, but it made his design more difficult. It was evident that the servant was not the master's accomplice, as Fix had been inclined to suspect.
"Well," said the detective to himself, "as he's not an accomplice, he will help me."
He had no time to lose. Fogg must be detained at Hong Kong, so he resolved to make a clean breast of it.
"Listen to me," said Fox abruptly. "I am not, as you think, an agent of the members of the Reform Club."
"Bah!" retorted Passepartout with an air of raillery.
"I am a police detective, sent out here by the London office."
"You, a detective?"
"I will prove it. Here is my commission."
Passepartout was speechless with astonishment when Fix displayed this document, the genuineness of which could not be doubted.
Mr. Fogg's wager," resumed Fix, "is only a pretext of which you and the gentlemen of the Reform are dupes. He had a motive for securing your innocent complicity."
"Oh, but why?"
"Listen. On the 28th of last September, a robbery of £55,000 was committed at the Bank of England by a person whose description was fortunately secured. Here is his description. It answers exactly to that of Mr. Phileas Fogg."
"Oh, what nonsense!" cried Passepartout, striking the table with his fist. "My master is the most honorable of men."
"How can you tell? You scarcely know anything about him. You went into his service the day he came away, and he came away on a foolish pretext, without trunks and carrying a large amount in banknotes, and yet you are bold enough to assert that he's an honest man."
"Oh, yes, yes," repeated the poor fellow mechanically.
"Would you like to be arrested as his accomplice?" Passepartout, overcome by what he had heard, held his head between his hands and did not dare to look at the detective. Phileas Fogg, the savior of Aouda, that brave and generous man. A robber! And yet how many presumptions there were against him! Passepartout essayed to reject the suspicions which forced themselves upon his mind. He did not wish to believe that his master was guilty. "Well, what do you want of me?" said he at last with an effort. "See here," replied Fix. "I've tracked Mr. Fogg to this place, but as yet I've failed to receive the warrant of arrest for which I sent to London. You must help me to keep him here in Hong Kong." But I will share with you the £2,000 reward offered by the Bank of England." "Never," replied Passepartout, who tried to rise, but fell back, exhausted in mind and body. "Oh, Monsieur Fix," he stammered, "even should you say maybe it's true. If my master is really the robber you are seeking for, which I deny, I am in his service. I have seen his generosity and goodness, and I will never betray him, not for all the gold in the world. I come from a village where they don't eat that kind of bread." "You refuse?" "I refuse." "Consider that I've said nothing," said Fix, "and let us drink." "Yes, let us drink." Passepartout felt himself yielding more and more to the effects of the liquor. Fix, seeing that he must, at all hazards, be separated from his master, wished to entirely overcome him. Some pipes full of opium lay upon the table. Fix slipped one into Passepartout's hand. He took it, put it between his lips, lit it, drew several puffs, and his head, becoming heavy under the influence of the narcotic, fell upon the table. "At last," said Fix, seeing Passepartout unconscious, "Mr. Fogg will not be informed of the Carnatic's departure, and if he is, he will have to go without this cursed Frenchman." And after paying his bill, Fix left the tavern. Yeah. There we go. That's boy, oh boy. Well, thank you, Rookie Whistle. Some sweet, sweet octopus. That's such a weird sticker, that one. It's just a weird one. Rose thinks he ought to offer to pay his gas bill. Yeah, that's that because yeah, he's losing like a shilling a week. I think he said it's costing him balanced against what he gets paid. He's losing a shilling a week by because he left his gas on. Oh boy, oh boy. Okay, catching up with chat. What was in the British History Museum? That's sorry, I missed an earlier set of embers there from Mr. Rookie. Mr. Rookie was going all out today. Thank you. You've seen the letter to the King of China begging the Queen to stop. England was not doing a lot of good stuff at that time there, and just like unloading like tons and tons of opium and like into the is not good. Not good. Yeah, there was kind of some fighting going on about that. Kind of some, yeah, the opium wars. That's wiki. Actually, listen, we can probably find a little link on that for anyone interested in the opium wars. Yeah. Right here, just in case anyone's wondering. Yeah, so England. Boy, oh boy. Oh, there's two of them. I didn't know that. Okay, I'm just putting a link down here. This just in case anyone wants to quickly take a little peek at that. There, I don't know too much about it at all, actually. I just know that yeah, Britain was not doing good things with that one. That's for sure. Man,
Civilization and bring civilization and drugs to not good. But you got to make a buck somehow, right? I guess. I don't know. Don't know. Oh, well, it's 1:45, so it's 1:45. We got time for another chapter. Yeah, okay, we can get through chapter 20. And then we'll probably end with a little short story as well, and we'll continue. So let's do one more chapter of Around the World in 80 Days. We'll end on a little short story just to wrap it up, and we'll continue tomorrow on our Monday through Thursday book reading. We'll continue with another big set of chapters from Around the World in 80 Days. There we go. All right. What am I looking for? My book. Yeah, okay, and I'll catch up with chat in a minute. Okay. Chapter 20, in which Fix comes face to face with Phileas Fogg. While these events were passing at the opium house, Mr. Fogg, unconscious of the danger he was in losing the steamer, was quietly escorting Aouda about the streets of the English Quarter, making the necessary purchases for the long voyage before them. It was all very well for an Englishman like Mr. Fogg to make the tour of the world with a carpet-bag. A lady could not be expected to travel comfortably under such conditions, though. He acquitted his task with characteristic serenity, and invariably replied to the remonstrances of his fair companion, who was confused by his patience and generosity. "It's in the interest of my journey, a part of my program." The purchases made, they returned to the hotel, where they dined at a sumptuously served table d'hôte, after which Aouda, shaking hands with her protector after the English fashion, retired to her room for rest. Mr. Fogg absorbed himself throughout the evening in the perusal of the Times and Illustrated London News. Had he been capable of being astonished at anything, it would have been not to see his servant return at bedtime. But knowing that the steamer was not to leave for Yokohama until the next morning, he did not disturb himself about the matter. When Passepartout did not appear the next morning to answer his master's bell, Mr. Fogg, not betraying the least vexation, contented himself with taking his carpet-bag, calling Aouda, and sending for a palanquin. It was then 8 o'clock. At 9:30, it being then high tide, the Carnatic would leave the harbour. Mr. Fogg and Aouda got into the palanquin, their luggage being brought after on a wheelbarrow, and half an hour later stepped upon the quay whence they were to embark. Mr. Fogg then learned that the Carnatic had sailed the evening before. He had expected to find not only the steamer, but his domestic, and was forced to give up both. But no sign of disappointment appeared on his face, and he merely remarked to Aouda, "It's an accident, madam. Nothing more." "Good morning, godly guardian. Good morning." At this moment, a man who had been observing him attentively approached. It was Fix, who, bowing, addressed Mr. Fogg. "Were you not like me, sir, a passenger by the Rangoon, which arrived yesterday?" "I was, sir," replied Mr. Fogg coldly, "but I have not the honor—" "Pardon me. I thought I should find your servant here." "Do you know where he is, sir?" asked Aouda anxiously. "What?" responded Fix, feigning surprise. "Is he not with you?" "No," said Aouda. "He has not made his appearance since yesterday. Could he have gone on board the Carnatic without us?" "Oh, without you, madam?" answered the detective. "Excuse me, did you intend to sail in the Carnatic?" "Yes, sir." "Oh, so did I, madam, and I'm exceedingly disappointed. The Carnatic, its repairs being completed, left Hong Kong 12 hours before the stated time, without any notice being given, and we must now wait a week for another steamer." As he said, "a week," Fix felt his heart leap for joy. Fogg detained at Hong Kong for a week. There would be time for the warrant to arrive, and fortune at last favored the representative of the law. His horror may be imagined when he heard Mr. Fogg say in his placid voice, "But there are other vessels beside the Carnatic, it seems to me, in the harbor of Hong Kong." And, offering his arm to Aouda, he directed his steps toward the docks in search of some craft about to start. Fix, stupefied, followed. It seemed as if he were attached to Mr. Fogg by an invisible thread. Chance, however, appeared really to have abandoned the man it had hitherto served so well. For 3 hours, Phileas Fogg wandered about the docks with the determination, if necessary, to charter a vessel to carry him to Yokohama, but he could only find vessels which were loading or unloading, and which could not, therefore, set sail. Fix began to hope again. But Mr. Fogg, far from being discouraged, was continuing his search, resolved not to stop if he had to resort to Macao, when he was accosted by a sailor on one of the wharves.
"Is your Honour looking for a boat?"
"Have you a boat ready to sail?"
Yes, Your Honour, a pilot boat, number 43, best in the harbour."
"Does she go fast?"
"Between 8 and 9 knots the hour. Will you look at her?"
"Yes."
"Your Honour will be satisfied with her. Is it for a sea excursion?"
"No, for a voyage."
"A voyage?"
Yes. Will you agree to take me to Yokohama?" The sailor leaned on the railing, opened his eyes wide, and said,
"Is your Honour joking?"
No, I've missed the Carnatic, and I must get to Yokohama by the 14th at the latest, to take the boat for San Francisco."
"Oh, I'm sorry," said the sailor, "but it's impossible."
"I offer you £100 per day, and an additional reward of £200 if I reach Yokohama in time."
"Are you in earnest?"
"Very much so." The pilot walked away a little distance and gazed out to sea, evidently struggling between the anxiety to gain a large sum and the fear of venturing so far. Fix was in mortal suspense. Mr. Fogg turned to Aouda and asked her, "You would not be afraid, would you, madam?"
"Not with you, Mr. Fogg,"
was her answer. The pilot now returned, shuffling his hat in his hands. "Well, pilot," said Mr. Fogg.
Well, Your Honour," replied he, "I could not risk myself, my men, or my little boat of scarcely 20 tons on so long a voyage at this time of year. Besides, we could not reach Yokohama in time, for it's 1,660 miles from Hong Kong."
"Only 1,600, said Mr. Fogg.
"It's the same thing."
Fix breathed more freely.
"But,"
added the pilot,
"it might be arranged another way."
Fix ceased to breathe at all. "How?" asked Mr. Fogg.
"By going to Nagasaki, at the extreme south of Japan, or even to Shanghai, which is only 800 miles from here. In going to Shanghai, we should not be forced to sail wide of the Chinese coast, which would be a great advantage, as the currents run northwards and would aid us."
"A pilot," said Mr. Fogg, "I must take the American steamer at Yokohama, and not at Shanghai or Nagasaki."
"Why not?"
returned the pilot.
"The San Francisco steamer does not start from Yokohama. It puts in at Yokohama and Nagasaki, but it starts from Shanghai."
"You're sure of that?"
"Perfectly."
"And when does the boat leave Shanghai?"
"On the 11th, at 7 in the evening. We have, therefore, 4 days before us. That's 96 hours, and in that time, if we had good luck and a good southwest wind, and the sea was calm, we could make those 800 miles to Shanghai."
"And you could go—"
"In an hour, as soon as provisions could be aboard and the sails put up."
"Ah, rookie whistle. Maybe the sailor will take embers, too." "And you could go—"
"In an hour, as soon as provisions could be got aboard and the sails put up."
"It's a bargain. Are you the master of the boat?"
"Yes, John Bunsby, master of the Tankadere."
Would you like some earnest money?
If it would not put your honour out.
Here are £200 on account, sir, added Phileas Fogg. Turning to Fix, if you would like to take advantage.
Thanks, sir. I was about to ask the favour.
Very well. In half an hour we shall go aboard.
Oh, but poor Passepartout,
urged Aouda, who was much disturbed by the servant's disappearance. I shall do all I can to find him, replied Phileas Fogg. While Fix, in a feverish, nervous state, repaired to the pilot boat, the others directed their course to the police station at Hong Kong. Phileas Fogg there gave Passepartout's description and left a sum of money to be spent in the search for him. The same formalities having been gone through at the French consulate, and the palanquin having stopped at the hotel for the luggage which had been sent back there, they returned to the wharf. It was now 3 o'clock, and pilot boat number 43, with its crew on board and its provisions stored away, was ready for departure. Good morning, Upmost Steve. Good morning, sir. How you doing? Good to see you. The Tankadere was a neat little craft of 20 tons, as gracefully built as if she were a racing yacht. Her shining copper sheathing, her galvanized ironwork, her deck, white as ivory, betrayed the pride taken by John Bunsby in making her presentable. Her 2 masts leaned a trifle backward. She carried brigantine, foresail, storm jib, and standing jib, and was well rigged for running before the wind. And she seemed capable of brisk speed, which indeed she had already proved by gaining several prizes in pilot-boat races. The crew of the Tankadere was composed of John Bunsby, the master, and 4 hardy mariners who were familiar with the Chinese seas. John Bunsby himself, a man of 45 or thereabouts, vigorous, sunburnt, with a sprightly expression of the eye, and energetic and self-reliant countenance, would have inspired confidence in the most timid. Phileas Fogg and Aouda went on board, where they found Fix already installed. Below deck was a square cabin, of which the walls bulged out in the form of cots above a circular divan. In the center was a table provided with a swinging lamp. The accommodation was confined, but neat. "I'm sorry I have nothing better to offer you," said Mr. Fogg to Fix, who bowed without responding. The detective had a feeling akin to humiliation in profiting by the kindness of Mr. Fogg.
It's certain, thought he, though rascal as he is, he's a polite one.
The sails and the English flag were hoisted at 10 minutes past 3. Mr. Fogg and Aouda, who were seated on deck, cast a last glance at the quay, in the hope of espying Passepartout. Fix was not without his fears lest chance should direct the steps of the unfortunate servant whom he had so badly treated in this direction, in which case an explanation the reverse of satisfactory to the detective must have ensued. But the Frenchman did not appear, and without doubt was still lying under the stupefying influence of the opium. John Bunsby, master, at length gave the order to start, and the Tankadere, taking the wind under her brigantine, foresail, and standing jib, bounded briskly forward over the waves. Yeah. There we go. Whoa. Man, okay, so what's everyone doing today? That's as far as we're going with Around the World in 80 Days. I'm going to find a short story to read real fast. But that's where we are at right there. Let's take a little peek. Take a little peek here. Where we at? Let me just see. That looks okay. What am I doing? That is. What we're doing. We're doing well here, Godly Guardian. Yeah. It's Wednesday. It's Hump Day. I hope your day is awesome. We still got we still got a few days left in the week, but right now it's a coast down to the weekend, right? Am I right? I think so. Okay, let me just switch scenes real fast. Where's my this is it right here. Okay, Now I can open my Kindle. Yeah, and we'll continue with Around the World in 80 Days tomorrow. Looks like Passepartout's out for the count. Out for the count. Okay, I'm just going to see, what are we looking for? Oh, the last thing we read in there was Annabelle Lee. We read that for someone. The Tales. Is Ligia the one with the teeth? Not sure. Well, Fall of the House of Usher is too long. Murders, Murders in the Rue Morgue. That would be a fun one to do, except that that's kind of long. Actually, let me do a quick page count, actually, of Murders in the Rue Morgue. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 30, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 40, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 50, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 60, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 70, 1, 2, 3, 4, 74. 74. So I could do that on a short story Sunday. We've never read that one before, but yeah, that would require, yeah, that's doable on a short story Sunday. Who's the mystery of Marie? Okay. So we're just gonna do a short one here. I got it. This is what we're gonna do. Let me change the title of this book here. We're going to switch on over to a bit of Edgar Allan Poe. Because we all need a little spoopiness in our lives. Sure, why not? You ready for this one? I don't know if anyone's ready for this one. The Mask of the Red Death. Will it be good? I think it will. Okay, catching up on chat real fast. Wake up, Shadow, it's Poe time. Ah. Very. Oh yeah. You like the new stickers there? Nice. Yeah. Every time I see that, I've never noticed the way I've been saying nice for like I don't know how many years. The Rue Morgue is a great story. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Actually, the Iron Maiden song is pretty good about that one too. Really good, actually, really good. Rookie Whistle is a lot of hype. We've got some Edgar Allan Poe hype. That's right. So we're just going to do this. This one's a short story. This will be about 15, 20 minutes, something like that. Rose was talking about you today, about the chip and dip. Yeah. Is that what you call it? The Unity sticker, the chip and dip? Anyway, thank you, Rookie Whistle. Thank you. You're very, very generous. Thank you. Okay, so here we go. So we're going to end our... okay, for those who might not know, okay, yeah. Monday through Thursday, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, we read books here. I read for about 2.5 hours. We've just done 2 hours of... This is day 3, this one here. Around the World in 80 Days. We'll continue with this tomorrow at 10 a.m. Pacific. We're just going to wind our day down with a short story by Edgar Allan Poe. There we go. Oh, man. Okay. I got such an itchy nose. It's dry. It's so dry in here. Okay. What am I looking for? I'm looking for my Kindle. That's what I need. Where's my Kindle book at? There it is. Need to change scenes. 1 second. Bloop. There we go. Is my I think is my... I don't know if my restream chat thing is working properly. Anyway, this is what we're going to be ending the day with. Yeah, it's going to be good. The Mask of the Red Death by Edgar Allan Poe.
The Red Death had long devastated the country. No pestilence had ever been so fatal or so hideous. Blood was its avatar and its seal, the redness and the horror of blood. There were sharp pains and sudden dizziness, and then profuse bleeding at the pores, with dissolution. The scarlet stains upon the body, and especially upon the face of the victim, were the pest ban which shut him out from the aid and from the sympathy of his fellow men. And the whole seizure, progress, and termination of the disease were the incidents of half an hour. But the Prince Prospero was happy and dauntless and sagacious. When his dominions were half depopulated, he summoned to his presence 1,000 hale and light-hearted friends from among the knights and dames of his court, and with these retired to the deep seclusion of one of his castellated abbeys. This was an extensive and magnificent structure, the creation of the prince's own eccentric yet august taste. A strong and lofty wall girdled it in. This wall had gates of iron. The courtiers, having entered, brought furnaces and massy hammers and welded the bolts. They resolved to leave means neither of ingress or egress to the sudden impulses of despair or of frenzy from within. The abbey was amply provisioned. With such precautions, the courtiers might bid defiance to contagion. The external world could take care of itself. In the meantime, it was folly to grieve or to think. The prince had provided all the appliances of pleasure. There were buffoons, there were improvisatori, there were ballet dancers, there were musicians, there was beauty. There was wine. All these and security were within. Without was the Red Death. It was toward the close of the 5th or 6th month of his seclusion, and while the pestilence raged most furiously abroad, it was then that the Prince Prospero entertained his 1,000 friends at a masked ball of the most unusual magnificence. It was a voluptuous scene, that masquerade. But first let me tell of the rooms in which it was held. There were 7, an imperial suite. In many palaces, however, such suites form a long and straight vista, while the folding doors slide back nearly to the walls on either hand, so that the view of the whole extent is scarcely impeded. Here the case was very different, as might have been expected from the Duke's love of the bazaar. The apartments were so irregularly disposed that the vision embraced but little more than one at a time. There was a sharp turn at every 20 or 30 yards, and at each turn a novel effect. To the right and left, in the middle of each wall, a tall and narrow Gothic window looked out upon a closed corridor which pursued the windings of the suite. These windows were of stained glass, whose color varied in accordance with the prevailing hue of the decorations of the chamber into which it opened. That at the eastern extremity was hung, for example, in blue, and vividly blue were its windows. The second chamber was purple in its ornaments and tapestries, and here the panes were purple. The third was green throughout, and so were the casements. The fourth was furnished and lighted with orange, the fifth with white, the sixth with violet. The 7th apartment was closely shrouded in black velvet tapestries that hung all over the ceiling,
and down the walls, falling in heavy folds upon a carpet of the same material and hue. But in this chamber only, the color of the windows failed to correspond with the decorations. The panes here were scarlet, a deep blood color. Now, in no one of the 7 apartments was there any lamp or candelabrum, amid the profusion of golden ornaments that lay scattered to and fro, or depended from the roof. There was no light of any kind emanating from lamp or candle within the suite of chambers. But in the corridors that followed the suite there stood, opposite to each window, a heavy tripod bearing a brazier of fire that protected its rays. That must be a typo. A heavy tripod bearing a brazier of fire that projected its rays through the tinted glass, and so glaringly illumined the room. And thus were produced a multitude of gaudy and fantastic appearances. But in the western or black chamber, the effect of the firelight that streamed upon the dark hangings through the blood-tinted panes was ghastly in the extreme, and produced so wild a look upon the countenances of those who entered that there were few of the company bold enough to set foot within its precincts at all. It was in this apartment also that there stood against the western wall a gigantic clock of ebony. Its pendulum swung to and fro with a dull, heavy, monotonous clang. And when the minute hand made the circuit of the face, and the hour was to be stricken, there came from the brazen lungs of the clock a sound which was clear and loud and deep and exceedingly musical, but of so peculiar a note and emphasis that, at each lapse of an hour, the musicians of the orchestra were constrained to pause momentarily in their performance, to hearken to the sound. And thus the waltzes perforce ceased their evolutions, and there was a brief disconcert of the whole gay company. And while the chimes of the clock yet rang, it was observed that the giddiest grew pale, and the more aged and sedate passed their hands over their brows as if in confused reverie or meditation. But when the echoes had fully ceased, a light laughter at once pervaded the assembly. The musicians looked at each other and smiled as if at their own nervousness and folly, and made whispering vows, each to the other, that the next chiming of the clock should produce in them no similar emotion. And then, after the lapse of 60 minutes, which embrace 3,600 seconds of the time that flies, there came yet another chiming of the clock, and then were the same disconcert and tremulousness and meditation as before. But, in spite of these things, it was a gay and magnificent revel. The tastes of the Duke were peculiar. He had a fine eye for colors and effects. He disregarded the decora of mere fashion. His plans were bold and fiery, and his conceptions glowed with barbaric luster. There are some who would have thought him mad. His followers felt that he was not. It was necessary to hear and see and touch him to be sure that he was not. Oh, boobies. He had directed, in great part, the movable embellishments of the 7 chambers, upon occasion of this great fete, and it was his own guiding taste which had given character to the masqueraders. Be sure they were grotesque. There were much glare and glitter and piquancy and phantasm, much of what has been seen since in Hernani. There were arabesque figures with unsuited limbs and appointments. There were delicious fancies, such as the madman fashions. There was much of the beautiful, much of the wanton, much of the bizarre, something of the terrible, and not a little of that which might have excited disgust. To and fro in the 7 chambers there stalked, in fact, a multitude of dreams, and these, the dreams, writhed in and about, taking hue from the rooms, and causing the wild music of the orchestra to seem as the echo of their steps. And anon there strikes the ebony clock which stands in the hall of the velvet. And then, for a moment, all is still, and all is silent save the voice of the clock. The dreams are stiff frozen as they stand, but the echoes of the chime die away. They have endured but an instant, and a light, half-subdued laughter floats after them as they depart. And now again the music swells, and the dreams live, and writhe to and fro more merrily than ever, taking hue from the many-tinted windows through which stream the rays from the tripods. But to the chamber which lies most westwardly of the 7, there are now none of the maskers who venture. For the night is waning away, and there flows a ruddier light through the blood-colored panes, and the blackness of the sable drapery appalls, and to him whose foot falls upon the sable carpet, there comes from the near clock of ebony a muffled peal more solemnly emphatic than any which reaches their ears, who indulge in the more remote gaieties of the other apartments. But these other apartments were densely crowded, and in them beat feverishly the heart of life. And the revel went whirlingly on, until at length there commenced the sound of midnight upon the clock. And then the music ceased, as I have told, and the evolutions of the waltzes were quieted, and there was an uneasy cessation of all things as before. But now there were 12 strokes to be sounded by the bell of the clock, and thus it happened, perhaps, that more of thought crept, with more of time, into the meditations of the thoughtful among those who revelled. And thus, too, it happened, perhaps, that before the last echoes of the last chime had utterly sunk into silence, there were many individuals in the crowd who had found leisure to become aware of the presence of a masked figure which had arrested the attention of no single individual before. And the rumor of this new presence having spread itself whisperingly around, there arose at length from the whole company a buzz or murmur, expressive of disapprobation and surprise, then finally of terror, of horror, and disgust. in an assembly of phantasms such as I have painted, it may well be supposed that no ordinary appearance could have excited such sensation. In truth, the masquerade license of the night was nearly unlimited, but the figure in question had out-Heroded Herod, and gone beyond the bounds of even the prince's indefinite decorum. There are chords in the hearts of the most reckless which cannot be touched without emotion. Even with the utterly lost, to whom life and death are equally jests, there are matters of which no jest can be made. The whole company, indeed, seemed now deeply to feel that in the costume and bearing of the stranger neither wit nor propriety existed. The figure was tall and gaunt, and shrouded from head to foot in the habiliments of the grave. The mask which concealed the visage was made so nearly to resemble the countenance of a stiffened corpse that the closest scrutiny must have had difficulty in detecting the cheat. And yet all this might have been endured, if not approved, by the mad revellers around. But the mummer had gone so far as to assume the type of the Red Death. His vesture was dabbled in blood, and his broad brow, with all the features of the face, was besprinkled with the scarlet horror. When the eyes of Prince Prospero fell upon this spectral image, which, with a slow and solemn movement, as if more fully to sustain its role, stalked to and fro among the waltzers, he was seen to be convulsed, in the first moment with a strong shudder either of terror or distaste, but in the next his brow reddened with rage. "Who dares?" he demanded hoarsely of the courtiers who stood near him. "Who dares insult us with this blasphemous mockery? Seize him and unmask him, that we may know whom we have to hang at sunrise from the battlements." It was in the eastern or blue chamber in which stood the Prince Prospero as he uttered these words. They rang throughout the 7 rooms loudly and clearly, for the prince was a bold and robust man, and the music had become hushed at the waving of his hand. It was in the blue room where stood the prince, with a group of pale courtiers by his side. At first, as he spoke, there was a slight rushing movement of this group in the direction of the intruder, who at the moment was also near at hand, and now, with deliberate and stately step, made closer approach to the speaker. But from a certain nameless awe with which the mad assumptions of the mummer had inspired the whole party, there were found none who put forth hand to seize him, so that, unimpeded, he passed within a yard of the prince's person, and while the vast assembly, as if with one impulse, shrank from the centers of the rooms to the walls, he made his way uninterruptedly, but with the same solemn and measured step which had distinguished him from the first, through the blue chamber to the purple, through the purple to the green, through the green to the orange, through this again to the white, and even thence to the violet, ere a decided movement had been made to arrest him. It was then, however, that the Prince Prospero, maddening with rage and the shame of his own momentary cowardice,
rushed hurriedly through the 6 chambers, while none followed him, on account of a deadly terror that had seized upon all. He bore aloft a drawn dagger, and had approached in rapid impetuosity to within 3 or 4 feet of the retreating figure, when the latter, having attained the extremity of the velvet apartment, turned suddenly and confronted his pursuer. There was a sharp cry, and the dagger dropped gleaming upon the sable carpet, upon which, instantly afterwards, fell prostrate in death the Prince Prospero. Then, summoning the wild courage of despair, a throng of the revelers at once threw themselves into the black apartment, and seizing the mummer, whose tall figure stood erect and motionless within the shadow of the ebony clock, gasped in unutterable horror at finding the grave cerements and corpse-like mask which they handled with so violent a rudeness, untenanted by any tangible form. And now was acknowledged the presence of the Red Death. He had come like a thief in the night, and one by one dropped the revelers in the blood-bedewed halls of their revel, and died each in the despairing posture of his fall. And the life of the ebony clock went out with that of the last of the gay, and the flames of the tripods expired, and darkness and decay and the Red Death held illimitable dominion over all.
Now, wasn't that a nice story? Alrighty. Woo. Okay. There's a little cherry tale to end the night with. Yeah. Alrighty, let me catch up with chat. Hump day. That's right. It's humpa day. I'm happy about that. Rookie Whistle. Thank you so much for the embers. That's been very kind. Mrs. Shadowtronics. Thank you. Thank you for embers too. There was gaming and stream, says Tillable Cat. What did I miss? Chip and Dip. I'm not sure if I missed anyone. Oh, Unchained Rage was on fire last night. So was Misbehaving. Man. And the Drunken Frog. The Drunken Frog was with us here as well. Let's see. You're asking about the Vincent Price movie of this. Is it in the public domain? I doubt it. It's worth looking up, though. Mask of the Red Death. I think it's only loosely based on this one, by the way. Actually, we can look it up right now. Wiki. Mask of the Red. I mean, well, he does have some stuff which is in the in the thing. Mask of the film. Mask of the Red Death film. 1964. 89. Mask of the Red Death is 64 film. Oh, it was a Roger Corman film. House on Haunted Hill, by the way, that is in the public domain. We should do that one. That'd be fun. Oh yeah, okay. So yeah, they got some. They bring. Okay, I'm just reading the wiki article on this the 1964 movie with Vincent Price. Then I just see that they're talking about like Hop Toad in it, which is actually a different story. Actually called Hop Frog. Hop Frog was the name of the poster. It looks like they've mashed in some extra stories in here. Production. Casting. Oh, Patrick McGee's in it. Wow. Very Patrick McGee is awesome. Let's see. No, it's not. It's not in the public domain. All right, that's okay. But there we go. That's that. So, what'd you think? That's pretty good. You watched that with Reanimator. Ah, all right. Okay. Well, it sounds like she's going places I don't go. All right. That's okay. All right. Yeah. Until tomorrow. Yeah. Thank you for spending your morning with us there, Rose. Thank you. Hope you enjoyed that. Yeah. Tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. Pacific, we'll be continuing with Phileas Fogg, Passport 2, Detective Fix. Oh, actually, no. Passport 2's gone. He's we lost him under a table in a opium den. That's not cool. But there we go. Yeah, we're going to be back with some gaming tonight. We're starting off with Phantasy Star, then we'll be moving on to the Sea of Solitude. I need to make some progress in that. We're going to be getting pretty close to the end. Yeah, I need to find a. Let's see. Let me just take a quick look at streams here. 1 second. Who are we following? Let's see. Oh, let's go back to that one. 1 second. But yeah, we got to go. Got to call it a day. Where is where are we at? 1 second, just taking a quick look at stuffs real fast. Yeah, so we can probably do that Mask of the Red, not Mask of the Red Death, The House on Haunted Hill. That's a really good movie too, and it's just a great Vincent Price movie as well. Where? Oh, maybe they're not. You know what? I was going to throw it over to Valor Plays, but I'm not seeing Valor Plays. Unless I'm missing something. Okay. She was supposed to be starting at noon, like a half hour ago. All right. Okay. I was going to return the favor. We had a great host from her last night. But tell you what. You know who's really cool? Who's really good? We try to host this man at least once a week. Sometimes we do it more. You know Mr. Art Galen, right? You know Mr. Art Galen? Chillable Cat, better than an opium fiend. That's right. That is, oh boy, Catbot got, oh no, that wasn't Catbot. Yeah, that's right. Nothing is worse than a reefer fiend. If you're on the reefers, next step, homicidal maniac. Homicidal. Boy, who was here for that short story on Sunday? It was called like The End of Time, and it was basically only dope smokers could escape from like the end of time thing that was going on. But if you smoked the dope, you were going to turn into a homicidal maniac.
I gotcha.
Yeah,
I understand.
that's right. It was hilarious. Oh, that's Galen right there. 1 second, I forgot to mute him. 1 second. It was a crazy story. It was just such a bizarre story. Very good. Okay, you all have a great night. Texas needs a 420 store. What's their status on legalization, by the way? Not that I try to talk about these things, but I could look it up. You deleted it because it was grammatically incorrect and you were too lazy to rewrite it. All right, fair enough. Oh boy. Backward people in Texas? I don't know. We'll see. Okay, anyway, I gotta go. I gotta get some things done. I need to be back later tonight. Thank you, everyone, for spending time with us. We're gonna go over to, thank you for the, oh no, we had no new, oh, look at that. We got 10 followers last night. So many of those were gift subs, too. Gift subs from, Unchained Rage, I believe it was. Last night, coming in from Valor's people, but I thought Valor was on, but she's not. Okay, but we got to go. So we're going to throw a host to Mr. Art by Galen. If you're watching, well, there's no one watching on Twitch. That's fine. Yeah, I do restream this stuff out with the whole Rona thing going on. I'm just trying to like spread some story time entertainment as wide as I can. But yeah. Oh, and if anyone has any clever ideas for something I could do on Instagram or Twitter, not Twitter, TikTok, let me know. Let me know in Discord, because what I'm thinking about doing right now is just doing little book quotes and stuff like that. Or maybe I should just do little bits of I don't know. I'll think about it. I gotta go. Anyway, have a great night, everyone. Chris Alberti's getting here right as we're running out. Okay, good to see you, man. Good to see you. But there we go. Oh, okay, let's go. Okay.